Hi, this is the midweek devotional for University United Methodist Church. I'm John Fletcher. I'm one of the members here. Happy July to anyone watching this. July in Louisiana is not always the most pleasant time. You go out and it's sort of like you've opened the dryer halfway through the drying cycle, and that wash of humidity just hits you like that. However, even with all of that, I have to say, I love the beginning of July because it gives me a chance to celebrate one of my favorite holidays. I think you know what I'm talking about. Obviously, it's Christmas, right? Christmas in July. I won't fit over my headphones, but you get the idea. I love Christmas. I love the fact that in July, 2020 is now closer to Christmas, the next Christmas, than it is to the last Christmas, and that's a cause for celebration. I don't really even care that it's that far away. One thing I learned becoming a Methodist, I grew up as a Southern Baptist and we celebrated Christmas, and that was wonderful. But when I was a Methodist, I learned that Methodists like to celebrate not just Christmas, but Advent, the coming of Christ, the incarnation of Emmanuel, God with us here into the world. And on the one hand, that's wonderful, but on the other hand, it's sort of a celebration of waiting, that sort of like anticipation, that watchful, like, oh my gosh, that is he coming? Is he coming? Is he here? That looking forward. You know, Spanish has a great word for that. The verb for waiting, esperar. It also means to hope, this idea of hopeful waiting. So even in July, I feel like as a Methodist, I can start looking forward to the advent, to the coming of Christ. I can look forward to it with a bit of hopeful waiting. I need some hopeful waiting that feels a bit more hopeful, frankly, than the hopeful waiting I've been doing, we've all been doing for the last 3 or 4 months at least. I keep waiting for things to get back to normal. I'm having a lot of meetings. I teach at LSU, and we're having a lot of meetings right now. How can we start classes in the fall? When things get back to normal. I teach theater, and oh my gosh, we can't have theater right now. We have to talk about having theater when things get back to normal. I look at the news and things seem in such an uproar in so many ways, and I keep wanting things to get back to normal. I need there to be some kind of hopefulness, and it seems like Advent is a really good way to picture that. There is a song by the artist Lisa Gongor. It's called When You Come, and she has it on her album from, I think, 2009, From the Ground. I'll play just a little bit of it, and forgive me, I'm blessed with the adequate voice in my family, not the great voice, but here's how this song goes. This rugged ground is working toward restoration's sweetest song. Come salvation ever true, make me believe things can be new. Looking for your kingdom now, in earth and ordinary lives, in my lover's tender eyes, I see the goodness peeking out. Heaven is here in little ways, but I can't wait for the day when you come. I love that song. Heaven is here in little ways, but I can't wait for the day when you come. I keep looking for little bits of heaven. To me, Christmas feels like a little bit of heaven. Advent feels a little bit like a little bit of heaven. This idea right now, I'm hoping for this little bit of heaven. I have to recognize that for me right now, that little bit of heaven feels a lot like getting things back to normal. It actually reminds me a little bit of my mother. My mother, as some of you know, died of dementia several years ago. It's an awful disease, of course, and one of the last stages of her decline before we had to seek out specialized care for her was this period in which, wherever she was, my mother would be sort of on the edge of her seat, looking around a little uncomfortably. She had that sort of manner that sort of communicated, I'm here in this place in this sort of strange event. I'm being polite and as polite as I know how to be, but I'm really kind of tired and I'd like to go home. I'm ready to go home now, she would tell us. You are home right now, Mama. We'd say, this is your home. This is where we live. And the doctors explained it to us that my mother wasn't really talking about a literal home. It was sort of an effect of her mind battling the dementia. Home, for her, was how she remembers sort of a time when things weren't confusing and scary and exhausting to her because of the dementia. She wants that. She wants things to return to that sort of normal. My heavy heart is aching for a home that I've not fully known, a life that's far beyond this one, and a father saying it is done. I'm holding out, but I hope and pray, and I can't wait for the day when you go. Aren't we all waiting for that day? Waiting for the normal right now. But as is the case with my mother, when we talk about wanting to get back to normal right now, I think it might be a bit of a fantasy. Every time we have a meeting about, once things return to normal, someone has to reality check us and say, we need to realize that we may not be talking about a normal that we're used to. Not for months, maybe not for years, maybe not ever. Even now, as we're entering phase two, we're thinking about rolling back to phase one rather than proceeding to phase three. We're cautioning, we're being cautioned that we may not be getting back to normal for a while. And then, frankly, if I listen to the world, if I listen to my brothers and sisters of color particularly, they're reminding us that the normal that I, as a white person, am used to hid a lot of injustices, a lot of inequalities, that's maybe not a normal we should be going back to. And that reminds me of two other things I learned about Advent when I'm a Methodist. That as a Methodist, I learned that the coming of Christ was not this comforting return to how things were going to be. So many people expected the coming of the Messiah. That would signal the return of Israel to power. That would signal the return of things to how they should be. And instead, you get a baby in a manger. You get them as refugees fleeing the country, crossing borders illegally. You get a Christ who is a servant to all rather than as the king of all. You get a Christ who overturns the tax collectors' tables, who insults the religious authorities of his day, who reaches out to those he should not by law be touching, be talking to, and says, let them come to me, for my kingdom is made of them. That Christ does not come to restore normal, but to bring about something new, to bring about a kingdom of God here on earth, a beloved community. And that's the other thing. As a Baptist, I think I always imagined the kingdom of God was just a synonym for heaven. After we die, we go up to the kingdom of God. But as a Methodist, I learned that when Jesus talks about the kingdom of God, he's talking about a thing that we create here on earth. It's here and now. It's a thing we Christians, we little Christs, must bring into being. It's a cliche. In every Christmas movie, there's someone who says, can't we? We should be practicing Christmas every day, all year round. I wonder if instead we should be practicing Advent all year round. Not just the waiting and the hoping, but the acting and the doing, the looking for God's kingdom now, the desire to make it better than the normal, the desire that we as a church, our job is to be heaven here in little ways. I see the dark, I hate it all. The wounded hand, the broken child. Surely now you hear their call. Surely, God, you feel it all. 'Cause heaven is here in little ways. But I can't wait for the day when you come. May the spirit of Advent be with you this July and beyond. The spirit of hoping, watching, and working for the kingdom of God on earth as it is in heaven. Amen.